You're listening to Archaeopolitics, a Harry Potter reread podcast focusing on politics in the wizarding world. I am Adri, one of your hosts, and a recovering English major who is livid at the new restrictions in Texas that promote forced births. Don't be fooled. This isn't about saving lives. This is about regulating women's bodies. They don't care if people with uteruses live or die. This is cruelty, and cruelty is the point.
Ooh, jumping right to the straight to the point here.
Straight to like Potter Watch, but not really. We'll go more in depth than Potter Watch.
So I'm Helene, your co-host, producer, and I mean, I was just gonna say that I'm busy, but like I feel like that's not what Adri said.
Cosign.
Yeah. Yep.
A busy bee who is also very mad.
Yes. Let's just say, yeah, that's my introduction this week.
Well, speaking of things that make us mad, today's focus on this reread podcast is Chapter 8, Snape Victorious, of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Spoiler alert, not my fucking favorite chapter.
Yeah, not the best chapter. In case you forgot what happens in this not-so-great chapter, this is the one where Tonks, not Luna, because a lot of people think it's Luna.
Cough, movie?
Yeah. Tonks finds Harry on the train after Malfoy attacks him in the last chapter. Snape ends up giving him crap on their way back up to the castle because Snape is a douchebag. And then Dumbledore gives his beginning of term speech, and the school is in shock to find out that Snape will be teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts and not potions this year.
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that today is September 1st, day of recording. Yeah. And Harry is also back at Hogwarts today.
Oh my god. It's like divine. Like, it's just like, it all is working out. Today we're recording on the day that this chapter is actually taking place in
Correct.
fiction. How weird is that? That's so cool.
It's so weird, which is like not what usually happens when we're recording.
Dang. I like it. I like that you picked up on that and pointed it out. That makes me happy.
Well, you know, I try. Some days I'm better than others. Speaking of some days are better than others, today also not a good day. September 1st, Texas has passed a ban on abortions. Before we begin discussing this stupid fucking ban that's about, regulating uteruses and basically killing women in the process, or people with uteruses in the process, I want to open with this. 70% of abortions in Texas in 2019 were provided to women of color. 70%. Which means that this restriction is going to disproportionately affect women of color.
Yeah.
Let's sink in for a second.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those statements that like should be more shocking than it is.
But it isn't? Yes, no. Correct. Just the same way I am constantly gaslit as a woman of color by physicians, which is actually why I'm in Puerto Rico right now. Actually getting healthcare that I am denied in Texas. So fun. Just very fun indeed. You don't have to cut this out. Abortions are also restricted in Puerto Rico, I should say.
Okay.
I couldn't get an abortion in Puerto Rico if I wanted.
Obviously, I obviously would not judge you if you were getting an abortion.
No, I understand where you're coming from. I just know that
that's not the case.
No, and if it was the case, obviously I would have said it, but I also want to make it clear, like, I couldn't get that kind of healthcare in Puerto Rico. I would probably have to go to like New Mexico or another Democratic held state to do that. Anyway, so yes, so the healthcare that I am getting here for my blood pressure is healthcare that I've been denied in Texas because of some regulations that, Republicans put about, women's bodies and beautiful things like that. So, had to come home and see a provider because also, fun fact, even though I have really good insurance, it's really hard to get a provider to see me. Isn't that great?
Could it have something to do with the fact that you are not a white woman? Or even a
Well,
white male, should I say?
yes, and also that, our healthcare system is so fucked up in terms of like being a new patient somewhere else. Because so what happened was like my primary healthcare provider is no longer taking any kind of insurance, right? So now, like, they went to a different model, and to find another provider who is willing to take on new patients, the first the first time they could even see me in their office for an like a first introductory, um what's it called, I'm blanking.
Intake?
Yeah, like an intake would be 2 months from now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool, I could die from blood pressure by then. Like, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been to the ER. They said, just monitor it. No big deal. And I'm like, I don't think this is normal. So
Yeah.
it's been great. It's
So
been great.
Texas and healthcare, don't mesh. They're like oil and
Cruelty,
water.
like, cruelty is the point, like cruelty
Yeah.
about like any women's health issue, like regardless of like abortion or like anything else. Like, oh, it's a woman, she'll live, or if not, we don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this new law that went into effect today bans abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy, which, by the way, guys, is that's well before many people with uteruses even know that they're pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, if
Yeah.
they have a irregular period, like a period that could span anywhere from 28 to 40 days, that's about the 6 week mark, like those 40 days. So
Yeah.
you find out,
Some
you find out
women
you're pregnant.
some women
It's
don't
like,
even some women don't even get periods.
correct,
There are a lot of times
correct.
where, for example, like if you have an IUD, they're like 98% effective or some ridiculous amount
Yeah, but
effective
there's that
of stop
2% or
yeah,
1%.
of stopping pregnancy, but you could technically get pregnant while on an IUD, and only 5% of women with IUDs have periods when they have their IUD. So it's very possible, or just even on birth control in general, you could be skipping your placebo week if you're on the pill, and birth
Yeah,
control is a
and
lot less
wouldn't know. You
effective
wouldn't
than an
know.
IUD. Yeah, the pill's a lot less
Yeah,
effective than the IUD. And so there's a lot of ways that people can get pregnant, not have periods, and not know until way past the 6 week mark. So it's concerning for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. Now, the law that bans this allows, like, so the way they got around it, Texas lawmakers got around this, was to say, well, the state cannot enforce these regulations, but it allows private citizens to sue abortion providers and anyone else who helps a woman obtain an abortion, including people who give rides to a clinic or provide financial assistance to obtain an abortion. Private citizens who bring these suits don't even need to show any connection to those they are suing.
So like a church
And
could go
sue,
and
yeah.
sue just because they don't believe in abortion.
And
Yeah,
like, it doesn't even have to be because like a parishioner of theirs got an abortion there.
yeah,
It could just be any abortion provider, or people driving people to get, the procedure, or helping people with like $5 or whatever to
yeah.
get the
That's
procedure done.
it's gonna become people's like full-time jobs to like search out new places to sue to
Well,
stop
it's,
every abortion
they
clinic.
award up to $10,000 per
Wow,
suit.
wow.
So this law also makes no exceptions for cases involving rape or incest. And, like, there's, some, they did quote some providers saying, like, patients are apprehensive. Like, they understand that the abortion that they're having this week, last week, the week before, is something that they wouldn't be able to have next week. They've been asking about it and asking, if I were here in September, would I be able to get this? It does permit abortions for health reasons, but exceptions are narrowly drawn, allowing a termination only if the pregnancy could endanger the mother's life or lead to, quote, substantial and irreversible impairment of a major bodily function, which is so fucking narrow, because what if the fetus, embryo, child, however you want to call it, dies in utero? Then you're going to force the pregnant person to carry to term and deliver a stillborn child. That's fucking heartbreaking.
Or
Because
even like there are in utero syndromes and things that babies can have where that will make they would die like within hours of being born anyway.
Correct.
So forcing the mother to go through labor, go through birth, have her child, and only be able to hold it for an hour or something before it dies, like that should be the mother's decision whether or not she wants to go through that. That's a lot of both physical and emotional trauma and stress to put someone through without their consent.
That's a lot of mental strain, like mental health strain. That's a lot of like you're putting much more strain on already a heartbreaking decision, And it's about, like I said, it's about regulating people's bodies and forcing births rather than really looking towards, a full human being's best interests in the moment. Like, what about, these people say they're pro-life, but like, what about the life of the person making the decision?
Yeah. Plus, they're only pro-life. They're only pro-life up until the point where the child is born. After that,
it's like, fuck that kid. We don't want to give them out handouts because that child better whore itself out for its food,
Yeah. So, like, why can't the mother make the decision for herself and her unborn child before it's born, but they can make the decisions without you interfering after the child is born? Like, why does that matter? Like how is that different?
Because cruelty is the point.
Yeah, it's awful, and I got an IUD last year, December 2020, for health reasons. It was actually prescribed by my doctor for cholesterol because my birth control pill was giving me high cholesterol, so she told me to switch. But I'm glad that I did it because it's just like there was a thing that like made me pull the trigger, because I've been wanting to get one ever since Trump went into office, because I was scared that stuff like this was going to start happening. And one of my worst fears is like to be raped and forced to have a child from a traumatic experience that I'm already suffering PTSD from.
Like, that further exacerbates your trauma.
Yeah.
Of that experience.
Because although, some may say it's ridiculous to have that fear because it's like, there's such a small chance of that happening. It's not that small of a chance.
No, first of all, it's not that small of a chance. And second of all, as a woman, the risks of being a visibly female person with a uterus in this country is that your life is not valued as much of that of a cis man's, and that you are disposable to a lot of people.
Yeah. I've been scared that things like this were going to happen for a while, especially when Trump was president. Now that he's no longer president, I kind of hoped that we would be able to reverse. But of course, I mean, the packing of the Supreme Court. Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say. The Supreme Court, those motherfuckers.
That's not something that Biden can easily change. Unfortunately, McConnell and Trump.
He could theoretically appoint another, like he could expand the court.
But that's just power. There's a lot of precedent. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons why he probably hasn't. He hasn't and probably won't do that.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword. Is what it is. Yeah. But because cruelty is the point of these restrictions and these laws, sometimes I'm like, well, I know that y'all don't want to create precedent, but when they're in power, they're going to do whatever the fuck they want anyway. Look at what they did,
Yeah. No, I know. Yep.
So it's just like, you don't want to like throw down at their level and sling mud at their level, but also like don't try to let them be like, oh, if you do this, then we'll do that, because they're definitely still going to do that even if you don't do this.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Whew. Speaking of crazy stuff, let's dive into the politics for this chapter. My God, what a chapter to like talk about in politics. I was like, what the fuck am I going to talk about this episode?
Yeah. Yeah, it was difficult for sure. But it looks like we both came up with something.
I mean, if you kind of have to, right? Like, it's the job. The job is to come up with something, even if it's ridiculous.
Yeah. You have quite a bit written out. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go
Yes.
first?
Let me go first, because I went the academic route once again.
Okay.
I don't often do this, but when I do, boy, do I show out. All right. For chapter 8, Snape victorious. Gag. The politic I chose was the politics of school administration. So I went to JSTOR, the journal site for academics, and I found a few articles that talked about the politics of school administration. One such article was from 1938, Helene. 1938. And it talked
Ooh,
about
long
the
time ago.
title. That's what they'll be saying in like 10 years about us. Like, it's a long time ago. The Politics in City School Administration by Nicholas Mosley. So, some of the quotes that I pulled from this article were the following: politics is most often connected in our minds with graft and with partisan appointments. So, hey, not much has changed since 1938, let me tell you. We do not stop to think that parties are the instruments by which public opinion is made effective, and that without them, there would be no voice for criticism, nor refuge for the person with opinions opposed to those of the rulers. Again, not much has changed. So it goes in, this article goes into like the politics of school appointments and like how people curry favor in school boards and administration. And it says,
Okay.
to make an appointment because of personal friendship is no doubt wrong, even if the appointee is well qualified, though this method is the method of business the world over. To make an appointment or force a dismissal on the basis of party politics alone is the unforgivable sin. The friend at least knows his friend's strengths and weaknesses. Kind of sounds like Dumbledore and Snape in this chapter.
Okay. Okay.
Because, so, like, the way I was thinking about it was like, is he really qualified? I guess, kind of. But also, like, Dumbledore's like, at least I know his strengths and weaknesses. And
Yeah.
I got a new potions master.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely qualified for potions. But yeah, is he technically qualified for Defense Against the Dark Arts? I don't know.
I
I
guess
don't
in
think so.
Dumbledore's minds, he was. Because he's like a Death Eater.
Yeah, but like how much like I don't know, battle has he seen? You know, like how much
I don't know. Dumbledore seems to know.
I guess. I don't know. I guess with like Lupin he hadn't really seen battle or whatever, but like
But he had seen adversity that was like,
yeah.
I guess, humane. Like, Snape's adversity just made him like surlier.
It just yeah, I feel like Snape is just like he just like is interested in Defense Against Dark Arts because he like has a fascination with the dark arts. But like
Yeah.
I'm interested in I don't know, like TV, but I can't teach a course on TV. I can teach a course on
I mean,
like the
maybe
base
you
level stuff
could.
that I know, but like no, I don't think I could teach a. I mean like I maybe I could teach a course on Buffy, I guess, but just because I'm interested in it, but I'm like not an expert. Like you know, I don't
Listen,
know.
just have the confidence of a mediocre white man and everything will be
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So
If I was a white man, I totally think I could do it.
and Snape, if anything, he is that mediocre white man.
That is so true. Yeah.
All right, so then I found another like journal article from 2008, and this one's titled "The Persistence of the Politics Administration Dichotomy: An Additional Explanation" by B. Douglas Skelly, and it talks about that this administration dichotomy persists despite evidence that politics and administration are inseparably linked in a number of ways. So the ways that he talks about it is administrative acts have political consequences. Administrators initiate policy, so like Dumbledore as the administrator of Hogwarts. Administrators shape policy after the fact. Civil servants are not politically neutral, like, Dumbledore. And legislators investigate and intervene in the administrative processes, like we saw last book with the Ministry of Magic.
Well, yeah, when you said civil servants are not politically neutral, and you said Dumbledore, I was actually thinking Umbridge.
That as well, but Dumbledore is technically a civil servant in the way that he is the headmaster of Hogwarts.
But I don't really see his politics like coming in to play as much with his like educational.
Do you think maybe you don't see it because maybe you agree more with his politics than Dolores' politics?
I don't know. I just think that, I don't know. I mean, can you think of like a really specific example of
like
his politics?
Okay. So remember, like, politics is just like how you see the world and how like you conduct yourself in the world. So Dolores sees it as very like regimented, very like rules, and very like wizards are above every other creature and muggles, right? So everything she does is informed by how she thinks. Dumbledore's like, we should have unity, kumbaya, like, also I'm very smart, but like we should always like be on like the lookout for the return of Voldemort and all that stuff. Like, his politics are more about like inclusion and unity, and he reinforces that as much as he can throughout his what he does. Like,
but isn't it so I don't know, it just sounds like it's I don't know what I'm trying to say. It sounds like we're just equating his politics like with human decency, and therefore it's political. Like, it's just basic human decency.
Political. Every act is political.
But it's just basic human decency and respect.
But you call it human decency, right? You call it human decency, and other people will be like, that is, no. But other people say, like, it's a raging liberalism is what it is.
I don't know. I guess I'm biased.
Well, you're not. You're thinking about politics as if like if something is inherently political, if I see like a complete motivation behind it because I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But even the things you agree with it are inherently political.
Okay. All right.
Like, even us having an opinion on, the abortion ban is inherently political, even though we're like,
well, I mean,
hello, basic human decency. That is the through line throughout the entire argument.
Yeah, I guess the only way that I'm kind of like seeing what you're saying is like I'm trying to view like Hogwarts and Dumbledore and how he runs Hogwarts through like Malfoy's eyes, I guess, because Malfoy doesn't necessarily agree with him politically.
Yeah, and he's like, look at this raging liberal wizard who wants us to all get along, and he doesn't understand that I'm better than everyone else. I guess, doesn't know who my father is?
Yeah, I guess just like literally just the act of maybe just appointing Hagrid as a teacher could be seen as a political move.
That's so that's where I was leading towards, like the act of appointing Hagrid as a teacher, appointing Lupin as a teacher. Yeah, like when those people wouldn't have been given the same opportunities outside, and it's there's a big point that is made about it in the series. Those two in particular, even Trelawney.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking Trelawney too, actually. Yeah.
So,
okay, you've convinced me. I mean, I kind of convinced myself after thinking about it, but yeah. But
also allowing Dobby to be like paid at Hogwarts.
Allowing Dobby to be paid, yeah. I mean, does he actually ever does it say that he pays Dobby?
Yes, he does. Dobby talks about his salary and stuff.
Okay, well, yeah, then I guess yeah.
Like, that is inherently progressive politics that I'm sure Malfoy's this flaming liberal,
I guess. Okay, I can see it now. Yeah.
just because we agree with it doesn't mean it's not political.
I don't know. I guess I just like I guess first thought I was thinking about it and it just didn't. I was just like, oh, he's just being an educator, you know. Like I didn't really but with Umbridge, it's like so obvious with Umbridge because she's like inserting things into her role as educator that like don't exactly fit in education. Like there's just a lot of things that she inserts in there that like are inherently bigoted.
It does fit a certain, but it does fit a certain ideal or ideal is like not idealism, like a certain like genre of education, kind of like the Trunchbull kind of education situation in Matilda, like where it's like very regimented, punishment based. Like there are certain like schools of thought about education that truly believe that that's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Like overregulation in education, which always like which always like makes me like it just makes me incredulous because like Republicans are in general. Yes, I'm equating Dolores Umbridge to a Republican.
Of course you are.
Shoot me, whatever. But like Republicans are they're very flip floppy on like where they are okay with what's the word with overstepping or like government
like overregulating. Overregulating.
Yeah, because they're all like their whole thing is like, oh, we don't want the government involved.
We want small government.
Yeah. We don't want government involved in anything. Like we want to be
except uteruses like, and schools.
but then there are things there are things that they're like we really really want government to be involved in these very specific things that like benefit us, but not in anything else. Like. So it's just reminding me.
Are people having a good time? Well, then we want to fucking regulate that because if there's no suffering, what are we doing in this world, basically?
Yeah, like the marijuana industry, overregulate it. Women's bodies, overregulate it. Like so many things. And then it's just everything else is like, oh, I'm rich and you want to tax me? Too much government, you know? Like, no.
Don't tread on my money, but I will tread on your uterus. 100%, you know. So
it's funny because it's true.
Now, like, I kind of love the like item C was like administrator shape policy after the fact because it's like Dumbledore makes like a decision and then he's like, actually, this makes sense, and he reverse engineers it to like, ta-da, it's done. Kind of like, you know, bringing Slughorn in and making sure like that way Harry can attend potions so he can become an Auror eventually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Even though like he's not quite sure if Harry has a future, he's trying to secure Harry's future in a way.
Yeah.
Like the Tonks and Aurors being in Hogsmeade near the school for Harry's safety is another thing that is very much like the politics of school administration. Snape being appointed Defense Against the Dark Arts. Because, you know, Umbridge was like, the bar is in hell. And now this is like, I guess he's better. And Dumbledore's speech on following the rules and making sure the students didn't make a big deal out of his, like, literally dead hand. So, you know, school policy. Fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot to say on that one.
And one more thing. The reinforcement of the protection of the castle, like, is also, like, something that he like decided based on the environment, and he has the authority to do so. So that's what I thought. What about you? What's your politic?
So I went with one that's just slightly less complicated than that one, but mine I don't know, mine is just very basic.
I feel sorry now for like, you know, giving people like, this is an entire lecture on school administration.
No, I mean, yours takes like a second, like yours has like multiple levels. It takes like a second of like deeper thought. I think for mine, mine's just a very base level. I'm sure that we've used it before in previous books. Obviously we haven't used it yet in this book.
Of course.
And I don't know if I'm like, you know, screwing myself by using it up front in this book and maybe I'll want to use it later on, but who knows? I'm just
you know what? We'll find another way to say it.
Yes. My politic this week is the politic of bullying. So as you know, I love to define my terms. I love to tell people exactly what I mean by bullying. And so this week I found a definition of the word bullying from the National Center Against Bullying. This is how they define that word. Bullying is an ongoing and deliberate misuse of power in relationships through repeated verbal, physical, and or social behavior that intends to cause physical, social, and or psychological harm. It can involve an individual or group misusing their power or perceived power over one or more persons who feel unable to stop it from happening. I thought that this definition specifically was like super on the nose about like where I was kind of going with choosing this politic.
On the nose because Harry's nose is broken.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so I mean the obvious thing that when you think of bullying, the obvious one that comes to mind in this chapter is Draco. Because like Draco is the school bully. He bullies Harry, he bullies Hermione, he bullies Ron.
Snape.
He's a bully. Yeah, no, so that's where I was going. So the less obvious one that I kind of find to be more attuned to this definition that I just read is actually Snape. Snape is the real bully in this chapter.
The things that he said, the thing he says to Tonks, I want to kill him.
Yeah, no. He's a bully to Tonks. He's a bully to Harry. He's just an asshole in this chapter, and that's so like when I was talking about this definition, it says the misuse of power in relationships, like that. Snape has a deliberate misuse of power, not only in this book, not only in this chapter, but like in the entire series. Awful misuse of power, and that's how he bullies his students.
Ugh, I hate him so much.
He's a big bully.
Bullying. All right, so we've got the politics of school administration and the politics of bullying for this chapter. So let's dive in. I'm going to share my quote where I thought like the politics of school administration was like the most evident. And this is Dumbledore's speech. I cannot emphasize strongly enough how dangerous the present situation is and how much care each of us at Hogwarts must take to ensure that we remain safe. The castle's magical fortifications have been strengthened over the summer. We are protected in new and more powerful ways, but we must still guard scrupulously against carelessness on the part of any student or member of staff. I urge you, therefore, to abide by any security restrictions that your teachers might impose upon you, however irksome you may find them. In particular, the rule that you are not to be out of after hours. I implore you, should you notice anything strange or suspicious within or outside the castle, to report it to a member of staff immediately. I trust you to conduct yourselves, always, with the strongest utmost regard for your own and others' safety. And I just thought of COVID. Through the entire fucking speech. I was like, yeah, just like act in ways that like safeguard your safety and the fucking safety of others.
Do you think that he was like talking directly to Harry when he was saying this?
I want to say like 25% of this was entirely for Harry.
Okay.
But then like 75% was like for the rest of the group.
It's just like when I was reading this chapter, when I was reading the chapter, I was like, this feels very pointed at Harry, but it's out of character if it is, because like Dumbledore has never once really cared if Harry went out after hours. Like
I think it's more like, you know, the danger is clear and present, and he doesn't want deaths that he can avoid.
Yeah. I mean, it would make more sense if he wasn't just talking about Harry, but he was just talking about everybody else, because he doesn't really seem to, like, care about disciplining Harry very much.
Yeah, no, he doesn't really care about disciplining a ton of the students anyway. It just seems like he was more about, like, guys, come on, I don't want more deaths. You know?
Yeah, like let's not be stupid, please.
Like, the Triwizard Tournament was only 2 books ago.
Yeah.
And, like, we have barely recovered from Cedric. Please.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, I mean, I know Sirius died last book, but he wasn't an actual student, so...
Yeah, and it wasn't
under
like
Dumbledore's
it wasn't
care.
Like, yeah, it wasn't at the Hogwarts. It wasn't like a school-related death. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I think Dumbledore's like, you know, do you remember the Triwizard Tournament, you guys? That's when Voldemort was not back. And one of our most beloved students died. Can we just please fucking tone it down?
Yeah, definitely.
Also, like, that gave me a big wear your masks and get vaccinated energy. Like, honestly.
Yeah, I could see that. I definitely could see that.
So what
That was a
about you?
good.
What
That's
was
a
your
good.
quote?
It was a good quote to kind of encompass your politic. Yeah, mine is quite a bit shorter. That because that was like
Sorry.
no, that was a beast of a quote, but no, it
But I was
encompassed a
like,
lot.
I can't cut anything out because everything is
No,
very directly related.
no. So mine for the politic of bullying. My quote was, he knew that Snape had come to fetch him for this, for the few minutes when he could needle and torment Harry without anyone else listening.
Oh my god, I want to murder this
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes like Harry, maybe you're taking it too personally, but definitely not in this chapter.
No, like this is he's exactly on the nose. Like, and it was like, so there's points in this chapter where like it's like dumb, or Harry makes remarks where it's like Snape is reading his mind. Like he'll think something and then Snape will like make a snide remark about it. And I mean, obviously, we know that Snape knows occlumency and legilimency, so I'm sure that Snape was actually reading Harry's mind with his legilimency.
But you know what? Props to Harry for not taking the bait, actually.
Oh yeah, no, he like one of the politics that I was kind of considering for this chapter, the first one that I kind of bounced around my head a little bit was silence, because like there's a lot to be said in this chapter of like
What is
silence
said
in
versus
terms,
nonsense said?
yeah,
Yeah.
things that are said versus not. Like there's a lot to be said with silence. There's a lot that silence, there's a big role that silence plays in this chapter. Like, for example, with Harry and Tonks when they were walking up from the train station and up until they met Snape, like they literally walked in silence. Like they did not say one thing to each other, but like there was a lot
Oh,
to be
and
said.
Harry couldn't even like move for like a big chunk of the chapter and couldn't speak.
Yeah, and like Harry holding his tongue and keeping silent, and not being provoked
Like for various
by
different reasons, yeah.
by Snape, by all these things, and then like the lack of silence when he yells like no when he finds out that
No.
Snape is Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, like where silence could have been used, could have like where it's used, there was a lot. So I mean, Harry holding back his
But
tongue,
Harry
and
Harry was like every Hogwarts student that wasn't a Slytherin in
yeah,
that moment, you know?
yeah.
He was like
he's
the
so
voice of the people.
he's so dramatic. I loved it. But yeah, I mean, it's just there are just points in this book where like, well, Harry was thinking like, oh, I just wish I could just put my invisibility cloak on and just walk to my table into the Great Hall with it on, so that like no one sees me and I can just get there without being noticed. And like Snape reads his mind and was like, no, you got to wear a cloak, like, or you can't wear a cloak. You got to go out there. I'm sure you wanted everybody to see you anyway, because didn't you want to make a grand entrance or whatever? Like
Ugh, this little bitch.
just stuff like that. Like it's
This
his.
tells us more, honestly, tells us more about Snape's actual desires and the way that he really is, that he wants, because he's measuring Harry by his truest like desires, you know? Like,
Yeah,
oh, don't you want to make an entrance? Like, because Snape truly does want to be noticed and make an entrance.
yeah.
Even though
I
he acts
mean,
like he's cooler than that. You know what I mean?
yeah, like he's projecting a lot on Harry, and he like says, "Oh, Harry loves the attention," and oh, I'm
Yeah,
sure
so
that
they're
this
like,
is exactly what you
and like,
wanted. And it's
and
like,
Snape,
no, I think this
no,
is
no,
exactly what you wanted.
no,
Yeah,
no, Snape, you love attention. It's you.
yeah. Like I think you should know by now. This is the 6th year that you've known this child. Like he does not like attention. He just it's given to him when he doesn't want it.
Like he actually doesn't want it, and you're the person who wants it the most and
Like
gets it the least. You know what I mean?
there was a point in this chapter, it was at the very beginning, where Tonks hadn't found him yet, and he was like, he thought like, oh, I hate myself for even thinking this, but like maybe someone will be like, oh my god, I can't, where's the famous Harry Potter, we can't find him. And like he actually like punishes himself for thinking that, because he doesn't want that attention. Like he
But also, like,
actually,
even when he's like life or death, or like,
yeah.
not even, I don't think it's life or death. It's like definite inconvenience on his part
Yeah.
to like be back at, like shit. Like now, how am I going to get back to Hogwarts? How long is it going to take for people to like notice
Yeah.
that I'm gone? Where am I?
Yeah, yeah. It's just, yeah. Snape just definitely projects a lot onto Harry, and he is mean to him for no reason at
As
all.
do most insecure people, you know?
Yeah.
If someone
Yep.
is super
Yep.
secure in who they are and like what they bring to the table, there's no need to project. Like you can accept people where they are and as who they are. But like if you're super insecure about who you are and like you're not getting like what you want out of life for any particular reason, you're going to start to project and say like, "Well, you da 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 da." It's like, "No, you're actually describing yourself."
Yeah. Well, if you haven't noticed, the character that I chose for this chapter for my politic was Snape. Pretty obvious.
What?
Draco.
What?
Draco. I mean, Draco is obviously
Honorable
also a good
mention.
option. Yeah, honorable mention for Draco because his bullying of Harry is the whole reason that Harry is in this situation in the first place because of what he did to him on the train. But yeah, it's Snape in this chapter. He's the big bully. He wins. What about you? I'm sure that it's pretty obvious who your character was for this chapter as well, but
For me, it's definitely like the person setting the policy and the agenda at
yeah.
Hogwarts. One Albus Dumbledore,
Yeah.
not the cat version, like the actual human
Yeah,
version.
not Albus Percival, but Brian Dumbledore cat version TM. Yes.
Yeah, TM. Yeah. But like, how do you see bullying like be a politic throughout the rest of the book, or even up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I mentioned, we see Snape bully tons of characters throughout the series.
Ugh, I know.
Namely, like Neville in class, and like Hermione, especially with that one part where her like teeth are growing, and he's like, "Oh, I don't see a difference." Like,
Ugh,
yeah,
son of a bitch.
I think that was in book 4 or something.
Yeah,
But yeah,
son of a
um,
bitch.
so like in the series, like a lot of it there is Snape, but obviously Draco, and I think mostly in this book it's going to be Draco. And probably some Snape too, but like they're always bullying everybody, calling Hermione a mudblood, all this shit. Like it's bound to happen.
I mean, fair. The way I saw like the politics of school administration in this chapter was like Dumbledore, like in this book, like in Half Blood Prince, takes more of a hands-on role in Harry's education. Cause like policy wise, he's like, so I guess it hasn't worked that I've kept my distance, you know?
Yeah.
And like how talked about earlier, like ensuring that he would be in the potions class so he could become an Auror, which is kind of like looking out for Harry's future, even though he's not quite sure Harry's going to survive this. But on the off chance he does, Dumbledore wants Harry to succeed.
Yes. Exactly.
And that's like ending with a slightly lighter note, which brings us to the high and the low notes of the chapter are Dementors and Chocolate. Dementors, the lowest of lows, and Chocolate, the highest of highs. Helene, tell me, what was your Dementor this chapter?
I mean, I think it's probably pretty obvious after, the first part of this episode, but definitely just Snape. Just like I like sat there trying to think of one specific instance that like angered me more than the rest, and they all just like were equally awful. So just Snape, the entire chapter of Snape, especially like his interaction with Tonks, like you mentioned,
Ugh, I
like
know, the worst.
just rude. Like why? Like what's the point? Like why just make someone feel bad just because you can? It's just
Well,
stupid.
you
I
know
hate
what
it.
though? You know what though? I'm going to harken back to our discussion about Republican lawmakers and
Mhm.
say cruelty is the point, Helene. Cruelty is the point.
Yeah. I mean, like, what does he have against Tonks? Like, what did Tonks ever do to him?
She's breathing, like, don't you know?
She didn't go to school with him. She didn't bully him. So, like, why? Just because she, like, was related to Sirius and, like, has a relationship with Lupin? Yeah,
Like,
they were your bullies, not her. Like, chill out, dude.
he'll find any tangential way to hate people. Like, that's his favorite thing in the world. You're not a Slytherin, I can fucking hate you,
Yeah, it just shows how petty he is. I just hate Snape. Anyway, what about
Speaking
you?
of petty, I wanted to like I'm not saying that this is my one Dementor in the chapter. I wish I could say the fucking entire chapter was my Dementor, because it was such a slog, honestly, emotionally, to read. 50 points from Gryffindor for lateness, I think, said Snape.
Ugh.
And let me see, another 20 for your muggle attire. You know, I don't believe any house has ever been in negative figures this early in the term. We haven't even started pudding. You might have set a record, Potter.
Yeah. Like, this is another petty thing. Like, he's just doing this because he can.
He's like, drunk on fucking power. Like,
yeah, he gets sincere enjoyment out of this one section of the chapter.
He's such a fucking sadist. This is what he is.
Yeah. God, I hate him. Yeah. But you know who I don't hate?
Things we don't hate.
I do not hate Harry James Potter. I also do not hate Harry's dramatic flair, his flair for the dramatic. I do not hate that.
Love it.
I have, dare I say, I love it. Yes. So my chocolate this chapter is Harry's dramatic no when Snape's new position has been announced.
That is like honestly a pretty good chocolate. Like, at first I was having a really hard time finding the chocolate in this chapter, and I was about to write, I kid you not, finishing this chapter was my chocolate because it was so terrible.
I mean, before you get to your chocolate, I have to say, I definitely, like, I always played that Harry's, like, dramatic no part in my head, like, much more intensely than it actually is, because for some reason I always remembered it being in, like, all caps. Like, I remembered it being an all caps no moment, and then in the chapter realizing that it's just, like, you know, regular uppercase N, lowercase O with one exclamation point. Like, it's just so much more downplayed in the actual text than I thought it was.
Yeah, same. Maybe it's not the way it's, like, written. It's about, like, the context, right? Like, he said no, and every fucking one heard him.
Yeah, it was like he said no, like, no, he said so loudly that, you know, half the Great Hall, like, it says that he said it loudly, but it's just not reflected in the actual, like, literal writing of the word. So I always thought it was more, you know, dramatic than it
it's
is
like
written.
In your mind it was like a no.
Yeah. Like he like stood up and just shouted no, like, to the whole Great Hall.
Like it had like multiple O's, you know?
Yeah, with like 10 exclamation points. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that on a molecular level. All right. So because I was like, fine, I'll find a fucking chocolate.
Yeah.
I was like, what made me kind of chuckle at least, you know? And it was either the mention of anything that was purchased in a shop called Weasley's Wizards Wheezes, kind of like this is like free promo for the twins that he's doing. The one that I came up with was the following. This is Nearly Headless Nick speaking. Harry Potter knows that he can confide in me with complete confidence, I told them. I would rather die than betray his trust. That's not saying much, seeing as you're already dead, Ron observed.
Yeah, and then he's like, oh man, you have the tact of, like, you know, I don't even know. He's like, oh, you're so blunt. Like, wow.
Like, and like, wow, you continue to show that you have the tact of, like, something like, kind of like the emotional range of a teaspoon is kind of like the vibe.
Yeah. This whole interaction definitely made me giggle, and it reminded me that, like, Ron has almost no filter. Like, he rarely has a filter.
And that's why I kind of love him. I'm sorry. I know that I'm a Ron apologist. It is what it is. This is my life and this is my truth, Helene.
Like, he's one of those guys that always wears his emotions on his sleeve. Like, he's a very emotional person. And he just, like, will just say what he's thinking. Which, I mean, not a bad thing.
Maybe it's because I'm also an emotional person, you know? Because I'm just like...
Yeah.
I relate, Ron. I relate a lot to Harry and Order of the Phoenix because he's very emotional. And I'm just like, yes, hard same. These, like, the moment I started getting my period, my hormones, man, like, you don't even know.
Right.
speaking of relatable things and things we love, this is the place where we thank our patrons once again for making it possible for us to keep this show going. It helps us pay all our expenses and related fees and subscriptions. Because you know what, guys? Contrary to popular belief, making a podcast and making it available online, not free.
No,
I wish it was. We
That would be
wish
nice.
it was. But if you want to help us keep this show going and also get some kind of like sweet, sweet rewards, you can hop on over to patreon.com/occupolitics.
Yes, for as little as $2 a month, you can get some access to bonus content that we record for you every single episode. And then if you want to contribute a little bit more here or there, there's a $5 and $10 a month tier option that is going to get you some actual physical rewards like stickers and recipes and all those cool stuff.
And today, we have a fun Patreon exclusive. We are going to be talking about the show that I converted Helene to. Ted Lasso, and we'll be talking about sorting the characters from Ted Lasso and kind of going back and forth on why we think they're the house they are.
Yeah, so I mean, apology in advance to any patrons who haven't seen Ted Lasso yet. You're not going to really understand the Patreon content unless you've seen the show. So what I would suggest is,
Homework.
when we get to that when we get to that point, when we get to the point of the Patreon, just pause, go watch all of the episodes of Ted Lasso, or even just the first few, I think would be probably enough.
At least season 1, I would say.
Yeah. And then come back because it honestly, I think it's going to be a fun discussion. Ted Lasso is literally just like joy in a bottle. Like this show is just pure joy.
It's not just like I do agree that it's kind of like joy in a bottle, but it's also like doesn't shy away from the hard stuff either.
Yeah, no, I think it does a great job. It's like probably one of the best shows to have been made this decade, honestly. Like it's very, very well done, extremely well done. So I would really suggest going to check it out. But I mean, you're going to want to hear this conversation and you're going to want to understand what we're talking about because it's going to be a fun conversation.
You're also going to want to know who Roy Kent is all I want to say. Oh my God.
Your life is not complete until you know who Roy Kent is.
I mean, honestly. He's here. He's there. He's every
fucking where. I was just thinking that. He's here. He's there. He's every fucking where. Roy Kent.
Yes, I quote this a lot.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, can't wait to get to that. But before we get to that, we have a couple other things to finish out the episode. So one of those being our question. What was our question last week, Adri?
Oh my gosh. So last week, one of my favorite questions so far. What do you think Harry's life would look like if Voldemort had chosen to go after Neville as the chosen one?
Yeah, we got some good answers this week, as always. I love the answers we get on social media from you guys. The first one was from @Kalamwati on Twitter. They said, well, he will still be the chosen one, ... I don't know if that's true, but anyway. Perhaps it would have looked less miserable with the number of deaths he saw. Cedric, Sirius, and Hedwig would perhaps still be alive, or at least have lived a few more years to get some action on the day of the final battle.
Well, if he hadn't gone for Harry, Sirius wouldn't have been imprisoned. Peter Pettigrew wouldn't have been outed as a double agent, right?
Yeah. I don't know about Peter, but yeah, I don't think Sirius wouldn't have been put in Azkaban, I don't think.
Yeah, because then, he wouldn't have anything to avenge, and think that he actually killed Peter.
Yeah, because, like, whoever, like, Neville's parents would be the ones in hiding, and they would have chosen their close friends as their secret keepers and, like, the people who are protecting them, not James's close friends.
Exactly.
So, yeah, they wouldn't have been involved. Cedric, who knows, might have. It's possible the Triwizard Tournament, all of the things that happened in the 4th book could have just happened, but with Neville as the champion instead of Harry, it's very possible.
Yeah, it's still possible, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know about that. But Hedwig would most likely still be alive. That's true.
Oh no, that's 1,000%. Also, maybe not Dobby though, because Dobby might have wanted to protect Neville then, right?
Yeah.
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 All right.
So that was Kalamwati. AP, that's me on Instagram, who is our beautiful editor Allison. She had some thoughts this week. She said, "It may sound boring, but I'm curious what his and James and Lily's relationship would be like with the Dursleys. Petunia was aware of the Wizarding World, but would she tell Vernon? I'm guessing Lily and Petunia still wouldn't talk much. But if Voldemort came back, would Lily explain to Petunia what's been happening since she's aware of the world? All that being said, it would be lovely for Harry to have his mom, dad, and Sirius in his life."
Oh,
I
that's cute.
agree.
I agree. Also, like, I think it would be more of like the relatives that they don't ever really see.
Yeah, I
Like maybe they, Harry, instead of growing up with Dudley, would have maybe met Dudley a couple of times in his life, and in
yeah.
passing, maybe.
Yeah, I still think that they would probably still have an estranged relationship, but yeah, I agree.
And also, Allison, that is not boring. I love to think about like what like dynamics of familial relationships are,
Yeah,
regardless.
and I like to think of like the impact on Harry. So like if Harry didn't have the Dursleys in his life and didn't like undergo all that psychological and physical abuse as a child from them, like how would his life be different? Would he be the same humble
Would
like
he be like a mini James
selfless?
Potter? Like he was
Yeah,
like cocky?
would he be like as humble and selfless as he is and we see him in the Harry Potter series, or would he, you know, have certain privileges that like give him a bit bigger of an ego or something? There are lots of things that could have happened without the Dursleys in his life. Not necessarily all bad. Like he still could have been grown up to be a great person without the Dursleys, but I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Like what makes Harry who he is, really?
I know. It's the chicken or the egg question, really.
Yeah, really. And then the last one that I'm going to read today is from Dream Quaffle, again on Instagram. Love your responses, Jeff. They're great. His response to this week's question was, hopefully Harry would have grown up with his parents, possibly even had siblings, and he could have been a
Mm,
friend to Neville, part of Neville's secret army.
I love this already.
Yeah, there's also a possibility that Harry's parents could have suffered the same fate that Neville's parents did. That would be worse for Harry than it is for Neville because Harry didn't have a super intense grand to take him to visit them or even to like take him in. He would still have ended up on Privet Drive, hearing lies about his parents until Dumbledore told him the truth, and then going to see them for the first time would become his Boggart or Dementor fuel. Interesting.
That's
Yeah,
super
no, I
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I also like it's not something that we really I guess like the first thing you think of, but Harry probably most likely probably would have still ended up with the Dursleys even if Neville was chosen because Neville lost his parents just like Harry did, just in a different way.
And is it more cruel to not see your parents' physical bodies and know that they're dead? Or is it even worse still to see a physical body but
Not
not
being able to
have,
connect.
well, and like in her own way, like Neville's mom kind of does connect with Neville with the
Yeah.
rappers, but it's not, I mean, it's the connection that he can have, and he'll cherish it, or he like, he treasures it, but it's definitely
Yeah.
probably not the one that he wants, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus,
So
yeah,
hard.
I mean, he doesn't have like Neville does have his grandma that takes him in, and while his grandma isn't, the best guardian or parent to him, and does kind of treat him badly at some points. Like she's not, as far as we
I
know, she's not abusive.
Jeff, I love the description of Neville's grandma as like a super intense gran, because like
Yeah.
that's exactly what she is.
Yeah. Yeah, like we don't like she's probably not great, but I'm guessing she's not halfway as bad as the Dursleys in terms of like physical and emotional abuse. So yeah, it would have Harry and Neville would definitely have been different people for sure, just in baseline. But like, yeah, that I hadn't really thought about that.
See, this is why I love asking these questions and reading like these answers, because it gives us things to think about that maybe didn't come to the forefront when we first started thinking about these questions.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
All right. So for this week, we have the following question for our listeners to answer. Who do you think is the bigger bully? Snape or Draco? And why do you think that?
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I'm interested to hear what people have to say because they're both bullies in their own way, and like, which one is worse, you know?
Yeah, love it. All right. Speaking of things that I love, media that is not Harry Potter related, even though I love Harry Potter regardless. But
Yes.
sometimes it's just good to talk about something else to end the show. Tell me, Helene, what media have you been consuming?
So like, I finished all of the shows that I had been currently watching over the weekend, and I was sitting in my on my couch, and I was like, I want to start something new. What am I in the mood for? I literally said, because I have an Apple TV like with Siri, so like I can be like, hey Siri, blah 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 blah, like show me this, or I want to watch this. Sorry, I had to pause to see if my Siri was gonna activate. Just by saying that. But so it was, I think it was like Saturday or Sunday night. I was sitting on my couch and I was like, Siri, show me 90s TV shows. Because like that was specifically the mood
What,
I
you were
was
on the
in.
mood? Yeah, the mood,
Yeah.
the mood. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was specifically in the mood for 90s TV shows, and I've seen a lot of them, but there are a lot that I haven't seen. And I was like, what are the ones that I haven't seen? So that led me to the OC, which I had not seen. I have not seen it. So I started the OC this weekend. I'm probably about 5 or 6, maybe 7 episodes in to the
I
first
am more
season.
surprised that you're not like on season 3 already.
I know it's been a couple of days, but I mean to be fair, the new Bachelor in Paradise, there's new episodes on Mondays and Tuesdays. So like,
Oh, so I see,
and
I see, I
and
see.
they're over an hour long each. So like it's been taking me, like I usually watch, an hour before work. I watch like during my lunch break, and then I like watch after I'm done with my stuff at night. And it's just been taking a lot of time to finish those. But I will catch up. So yeah, I've been watching the OC. I really really like it so far. Actually, I had no idea what it was about. I was just like, oh, it's just another like
It's another teen show.
yeah, teen melodrama or whatever. But I really like it, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So that's what I have been consuming. And then there was one thing I wanted to plug. That's also a TV show, because my new job, I work on social media campaigns for upcoming TV shows and movies. One of the ones that I've been working on for the last few months just premiered on Tuesday, and it's called Only Murders in the Building. And it is a TV show, Hulu original, with Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. The first 3 episodes dropped on Tuesday, and then they're dropping 1 episode every Tuesday through like October. So
Fantastic. I know Seth is really, really looking forward to watching that when I come back.
yeah, I've been working so hard on this campaign. I've seen all the episodes already. I love it. It's a great show, honestly. Not just because I'm working on it, but like I thoroughly enjoyed it just like on its own. It's funny, it's witty, it's smart, has a great cast. It's a good mystery. It's a murder mystery TV show. So highly recommend it. And I've had all my friends, because like I'm only really allowed to tell like my friends what I'm working on, since most of the things we're working on haven't come out yet, or sometimes haven't even been released. So now that it's released, I can tell you. But all my friends didn't know that I've been working on this for like the last few months, and now that it's out, I'm getting all my friends texting me like, I'm so excited, I'm about to watch Only Murders in the Building, like, and I'll be like, yeah, tell me what you think. So it's just been really nice seeing people like knowing about the show, watching it because I've recommended it, because I've seen it, because I'm working on it, and just like getting their reactions and stuff like that. So
I love it. I love this.
go watch it on Hulu. It's great. And also, while you're at it, go check out the social media pages, their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, because all the stuff that you see on there, well, 99% of the stuff that you see posted on social media was made by my team. A lot of my creative energy and love and hard work and sweat and tears went into what you're going to see on their social media page. So please go check it out.
Yeah, also like keep Helene with a job. That is my goal.
Yeah, it's a fun show. Please go watch it, and also just let me know what you think. You, Adri, but also the listeners. Feel free to just let me know what you think of the show because I'm interested to hear
Oh, I
what
love
people
it.
think.
Speaking of murders, speaking of mysteries, speaking of crime, I am obsessed, and I mean obsessed, as you know, with true crime. It is one of my loves. It goes like this. It goes like rom-coms, Harry Potter, true crime.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah, they're all in my top as well.
yeah, so it's like the top 3. Sometimes one is higher than the other, but
Right,
it's
right.
all pretty consistently pretty much even, those
Yeah.
3. It's
Yes.
if it has one of those 3 elements, I'm in. There is a podcast series called The Opportunist, and it goes in depth on why people do the things they do, terrible things people do that aren't necessarily murders, but are cons and
Okay.
swindling people out of money, and actual things that can lead to death.
Right.
This week, the second part of a 2-part series on Tara Lee dropped, and I highly recommend, if you have time,
Okay.
to just listen to those 2, because the other series are much longer series, 5 episodes deep or 4 episodes deep. But
Okay.
Tara Lee ran an adoption scam agency, an adoption agency that was a scam, and it is
Okay.
insane. The story is insane. The lengths that this woman went for money, I was horrified.
Wow. Yeah, I'm interested. I'm intrigued.
And to get a peek into the adoption industry complex, kind of the ways that people exploit, people like Tara Lee exploit it and exploit the hope of people who want to become parents but cannot for some reason,
Hmm.
made my blood boil. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Oh my, I'm not going to try to give a lot away, but it's insane and everyone needs to listen to it.
Crazy. Okay. Yeah, I'm always looking for. I mean, you know me. I'm the resident mental health expert on this podcast. Uh,
Of course.
I say sarcastically.
TM.
Yes,
TM.
yes. And my psychology degree and my background in psychology is definitely makes me very interested in people's motivations behind doing the things that they
Yeah,
do.
so The
Um,
Opportunist is a series that focuses on motives, which is
yeah,
something that always interests me.
same.
Not because
Yeah.
we don't want to celebrate, obviously, the things that these people do, but I mean, I don't know if I've told you this before. One of the things that I wanted to be as a career, early on, was a forensic psychologist, which is all about
Yeah, same.
why do criminals do the things they do?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't
No,
understand and I wanted to.
I literally thought I was going to go to school for forensic psychology. I was doing my bachelor's in psychology, wanted to figure out what I wanted to do with that, and forensic psychology was the top of my list. And then I realized you had to go to law school, and I was like, I am not doing 4 years of law school just so I could be a forensic psychologist. So
What? I had
yeah.
no idea you had to go to law school. I just stopped even before I started.
Yeah, no, I because so the two things I wanted to be um, were forensic psychologist or a licensed therapist, or even well, actually not even a licensed therapist, but a psychiatrist because they make the
Yeah.
most money.
Also, psychiatrists got to go to med school, girl.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it was I wanted to be a forensic psychologist, which requires 4 years of law school, or a psychiatrist because they make by far the most money that any psychology degree can make. But you have to go to 4 to 8 years of medical school. So yeah, that's why I didn't end up doing psychology. But but yeah, forensic psychology.
So now you do social media for TV
Yeah.
shows, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very happy where I ended up. But yeah, I get my my little, I don't know, my guilty pleasures from true crime and figuring out why people do the shitty things that they do. And that's how I fulfill out my dreams and love of forensic psychology. So I get you.
Well, that being said, that's it for today's episode. You are cordially invited to join us next week to talk about Chapter 9 of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And this chapter is titled The Half-Blood Prince.
Oh, I literally thought maybe you forgot to look up what it was titled because
No!
I was like, do I need to go look up what the chapter name is? Because I have no idea. But it's literally just called The Half-Blood Prince. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Well, if you've enjoyed this conversation, it was a ride of a conversation this week. We talked about a lot of things.
We had the highs, we got the lows.
Yeah. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of a conversation, please take a second to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or, wherever you happen to be listening to us in your ears right now. Any podcast app will do. It helps new listeners discover us and, helps us towards world domination and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Go give us a 5-star rating.
And all that jazz. All right. Anyways, until then, politics managed. Support this show by going to patreon.com/Occhiopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at Occhiopolitics.com. And we are at Occhiopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@Occhiopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699, and you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor, who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Occiopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.